now. Now, I know this is tricky because you won't be able to do the breakout session that we're going to do for the first 15 minutes of class, or well, we're going to do it around 2:30, but you won't be able to do that breakout session right away if you're in YouTube. So you'll have to text me or email me or write your responses back into class. I'm sending you a live. Okay, now it's muted. There we go. Oh, what just happened? That was weird. It just kicked me off. Oops, someone chatted. Oh, lots of objective 5s. Okay, way to go. I know what's most popular. That'll be easy for the breakout room. Now, where is the live stream? Where is it? Okay. And I need to share this. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties that I feel like are maybe my fault today, but I'm trying to find workarounds. All right, so if you get kicked out of class and you're having trouble connecting with Zoom, I also sent you a link on in Remind, specifically to our live, I don't know a Bernadine Maestas. Let's see, is there a way to send a message?
Is that someone who tried to join last week or the week before?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know them, so I'm not really feeling comfortable adding them in. I love that you were in the president's office. It is totally making my day. Oh, that is Salisa's name. Anastasia, I love that you noticed that. Well, Celise knows how to text me. I just wrote to make sure to text me. Okay, so there are 3 things we got to do today. Well, 4 if you count. I'm not through announcements yet, but we're having some technology issues. We have about 4 people that are logged in via YouTube now, so that's great. YouTube is working. We've got a couple people, 3 people watching live, which is a good option for us. If you're not able to log in, it's good to know that you could at least watch it live, happening in real time. Okay, so I talked about our first reminder, which was that you can get free Chromebooks. Not free, but you can borrow a free Chromebook from the school if you weren't able to get one. The next thing is, I sent you out a message last night about the Bakersfield College Writing Center. If you have them help you with your final paper, which is worth 20% of your grade. So if you have them help you, I will give you 5 extra credit points. If you have them help you twice, you could get 10 extra credit points. I had a student who messaged them last night right after I sent her text. She sent me an email and let me know that she was able to get an appointment both for this week and for next week. So after next week, they're going to stop doing appointments, but this will give you more than enough time to get your paper in. And if you can't get in a appointment till like next Thursday or Friday, I'll give you an extension on your paper just so that you can work on it with the Writing Center. And it's, I think it's Writing Center at bakersfieldcollege.edu. I don't know, I texted it out last night, the website of how to do it. But that everyone keeps asking me, like, can I do extra credit? How can I make sure that I pass? Like, I cannot emphasize enough. If you're worried about passing the class, one of the best things that you could do at this stage is make sure that you write the best possible final paper. Now, I'm putting a lot of emphasis, and I almost feel a little guilty that I'm spending a good amount of time with making sure that I really go over this final paper first and foremost today. Both is it worth 20% of your grade, but then, like I said, 8 out of 24 of the people left in the class already wrote this paper and got an A or a B. So for those folks, like, chill out, help your peers. I won't spend too long on this. but we got to go over it because it's been 3 months since I first went over what the final award speech is. So some more reminders. If you need help with registration, I have been in touch with Gina Liskey and we're working on getting everyone's paperwork processed. If you haven't contacted her about continuing to take early college classes, you should do that soon because there's a paperwork process that she's going to need your help getting through. Additionally, I'm teaching summer school. Okay, give me 1 second. So Lisa's messaging me. So I'm making sure it's not her in the room. So we'll see if that actually is Celise now that she's messaging me. I said the waiting room does not say spicy, so I didn't. Okay, we can let her in. It's her. Okay, so that mystery is solved. No one is trying to. We thought that Celise was a Zoom bomber, but she's not. So that is a lovely thing for the day. Okay, so passing the class will help you to work on this final paper, to talk to tutoring. If you need help with registering, let me know. I was just starting to talk about the fact that I am teaching summer school starting on May 18th. I know that's like, well, and the nice thing is normally that would suck for Valley Oak students, but you guys don't have finals. So you're going to be done with school that week. So it would be a nice, like while you have the momentum and you're in the like school mindset, it would be a nice time to take another class. It's small group communication and it's going to be fully through Zoom like this unless they allow us to break quarantine. If quarantine ends, then the class will meet face to face, but I don't think that's going to happen. The class is only a month long. We only meet like 14 times ever, and you don't have to be Valley Oaks. Anyone could take this class. So we only meet 14 times ever, and actually I'm going to stagger those meetings because it's a small group class. Like I'll have days where I meet with one group for an hour and then the next group will log in, and then I'll meet with another group for an hour and then the next group would log in, just so that I can like engage with a small group of people one at a time. So yes, it's 14 days of 3-hour meetings, but you won't actually be logged in for all 3 hours of those. You'll be doing little projects here and there. I just wanted to plug this class a little bit to say, every assignment that we do in this class, this public speaking class, we do a version of it in my small group class. So they're the same class, except that class you get to work in groups more in your presentations, first of all. And second of all, the class is thematic. So everyone, you can't like just choose whatever you want for speeches. You actually have to follow the theme of the class that I superimpose onto the class. And the theme for that class is board games. You heard it here, folks. We're playing board games. So Mr. Boone won't be teaching anymore. So he's all excited to like, he keeps saying he's gonna co-host my board game class. Like, we're not really hosts or teachers, but you know, little things make him happy. So I'm just going with that. We've been trapped indoors a lot. Okay, I think that's all of the announcements. I reminded folks, oh, the last thing. Oh, mucho más importante. Do not forget, you have to do all 4 speeches to pass this class. So you have to do the object speech, you have to do the persuasive speech, you have to do the informative speech, and you have to do the final lesson speech. It's a COVID-19 lesson speech. So today, I was going to go over announcements, which I'm working on right now, and I'm almost done with. And then I'm going to go over the final paper. And then we're going to do anyone who needs to do a makeup speech or hasn't done their speech yet for informative or persuasion. We're going to do that today. And then the last thing we're going to do today is we're going to go over that final speech, which is a very like low stress speech. I even mentioned part of it last week. Like I wrote up the instructions on one page, like it's super chill. So we'll talk about that when we get there. Are there any questions just based off announcements so far? How is everyone doing out there? Any eventful happenings? So my my first cousin, her uncle and her cousin for her mom's side, not her dad's, or her dad's side, which is my family, was found dead in their house from COVID. So that sucked. We could really do with a little less death in our family. And the worst part is, like, it was on the news and they like, oh, someone said, how can I fix my grade? I'm gonna talk about that. So it was on the news and the news gave a bunch of misinformation, and it's just been, I don't know, it's really tricky, you guys. Like, how do you have a funeral with 4 people? Like, and it's gonna be, they only will have it in the afternoons during the week, but they aren't providing chairs or shades because they are hard plastic and they hold germs. So I don't know, the whole thing is just bizarre. Like, it's, I don't know. I mean, like, why couldn't they put chairs 6 feet away from each other? I don't
What
get
do
it.
you do then? You just like stand in a circle or something, or?
Yeah, you stand in like a semicircle, but you're supposed to be 6 feet apart.
Hmm.
Oh, so Angelina, if you're watching on YouTube, some people are having trouble getting into the meeting. And so I'm streaming it live on YouTube for those folks that couldn't get into Zoom. This is actually a really good option for you. I know last week that you weren't able to log in successfully because it was a bandwidth issue, and YouTube uses less bandwidth, so it's easier to get into. So if like you're starting to have a lag and it kicks you out and you can't get back in, it's a good option for everyone. I've been starting to do the YouTube thing with more of my classes, just because, oh my gosh, it's so much easier to log in from a phone with YouTube, but we can't do speeches that way, so it's a little bit tricky. So the funeral thing's really tough. I mean, because this is a man with, 9 grandchildren and 8 great-grandchildren. My grandmother has 4 siblings and my mom has 3 siblings. So like, if we just did like siblings, you're looking at 10 people, but we can't have that many people. So the workaround that they legally cannot tell you is that they can't stop people from driving by in their cars because it's a cemetery. So I think that like the cousins and the grandchildren are just going to wear face masks, and we're going to just park outside the service. And I'm working with a friend to maybe, the priest said he would wear a lapel mic, and my friend has an FM radio transmitter. And so I'm thinking of broadcasting the FM transmission to everyone's cars that decides to come in. But that's a lot of technology and a lot of coordinating. So I have not been bored, let me tell you that. It's amazing all the things you don't think about that have to get done. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off in the weeds, but I am not ignoring you. I care so much about you all that sometimes I don't think about you until like Thursday at noon. I apologize, but you're kind of like you really are like my easy class. Like, everyone in this class is like hanging in there. So I don't know, sometimes you get like the stepchild treatment because y'all are so capable. Darn you for being so capable. So I had a couple questions, private questions on here. I won't say who they're from or what their like private information says, but the big question was like, generally, how do I improve my grade? So I want to talk about that for a second. And the first thing I want to say is, if you turned in a first draft of your final paper, it probably artificially lowered your grade. Because a lot of people like got, C's and D's on their first draft. Okay, and that's another good question. So there are 2 things you have to do to pass the class, and that's get 350 points and do all 4 speeches. Those are only 2 things you have to do, is get 350 points and do all 4 speeches. If you do those 2 things, you pass. Oh, I thought of something I forgot in reminders. These are great questions. Y'all are like fueling my fire here. I am still taking late work for everything. So if you haven't turned in your workbook, if you didn't do a quiz, if you didn't do, if there's something you just forgot to do and you need the points now, go back and do it. I'm taking late work until Friday. It's like the COVID generosity of my heart. You send me something, I'm still gonna do that. The next thing I want to say is, what happens if you do that last speech and you're still like 4 points off from 350 and you fail the class? I am not so, oh God, is tomorrow Friday? So I told everyone Friday, but let's give you guys until next Wednesday, which is the day before we meet. That'll give you like the, I have to figure it out. So don't tell the other classes, but you all can have a whole week, but no one else, just your class, because you're my easy class. Just to give you a couple more points. Okay, so to pass the class, you need 350 points and to do all 4 speeches. But what happens if you have 320 points? Well, I'll tell you what happens. I'm gonna drop your ass from the class. I just found out yesterday that they have extended the drop deadline for students until May 15th. So if I do all of the work in the class and you like even redo your paper and you still aren't passing, then I won't give you a DNF. I will just withdraw you from the class and you won't get credit for the class. But that means it won't hurt your GPA. That means you'll just have to you could take the small group class, which fulfills the same requirement with me, that starts on May 18th. So, if you couldn't get through this, that's okay. Wait till all your other classes are over and then just take the one class with me for the summer. But really, the only 2 things you have to do are the 4 speeches and get 350 points. Now, getting a B or an A is a little trickier. And that's why the very first thing I started with today was make sure that you are emailing the Writing Center and getting some extra credit, because that's really one of the last vestiges of extra credit opportunities that I'm offering for the class. That's really the last thing that I'm doing. And you could do it at least twice. 10 points is what, a 2% bump in a 500 point class. So that's nothing to scoff at. It will bring your grade up, but you guys are so funny. Let's see. Sorry, I'm reading comments while I'm responding as well. In fact, while I'm doing that, I'm gonna pop over to YouTube. Oh, how am I supposed to do my speech? So Danielle, you need to do your speech today, so you still need to log in. Okay, so when everyone goes into their rooms to work on the activity that we're gonna do, I don't want you to do the activity, Danielle. I'm gonna move you, I'm gonna text you directly and try and get you logged into the Zoom session. I know we're having a little bit of trouble, and I was thinking if people aren't doing speeches today, it's not a big deal. But if you are doing a speech today, it is kind of a big deal to get stuck in YouTube exile. So I will give you, let's see here, yes. I will help you once I get everyone squared away on that. But right now, I'm doing a general lecture. So if you're just watching the general lecture over YouTube right now, that's okay. Don't stress about getting logged back in just yet. I will turn my attention towards getting you logged back in. But I can see any comments that you post in the YouTube chat room. So Angelina or Danielle, if you need to post any comments to me, still continue to post them there, or you can send me a message through Remind. I will see both of them. So now that I checked in on the comment sections for both people, we kind of know how we need to improve our grades. I try to send a text message out when I'm just hanging out in office hours. It's kind of like our Zoom class, except for it's just me. And I, check on people's grades one-on-one. So if you need that, let me know, and I will send you a text tomorrow when I have office hours and try and get you logged in. Oh, I'm sorry, Angie, I didn't realize that. I was like, Danielle, is there a Danielle in this class? I know I have one in my other class, but maybe I'm mixing classes up. It's Angie. Okay, so we're figuring this out. I'm gonna go ahead and lecture, which may seem a little bit, okay, let's see. Okay, but Jennifer, I think you're in this meeting, right? You're in the big meeting. No. Okay, so the folks that have not given their speeches, it's just because they've been having some trouble with the technology, and I'm going to troubleshoot that with them while you all do a little bit of work on your final paper, and I'm going to explain specifically what I want you to do in just a few minutes. But first, I'm just going to do a quick slideshow. It's going to look familiar to you because I've done it before, but it was 3 months ago, and it's like, I was playing Animal Crossing with my son, and bro, it was hard. And I was like the Animal Crossing queen. I could play with my Wavebird on my GameCube, laying upside down and still get all my stuff done. I loved Animal Crossing. So when my kid got a Switch and got Animal Crossing, I thought, well, this is my jam. But then I picked it up and it was weird and awkward. Oh, sacrilege, not knowing what Animal Crossing is. Actually, our former next door neighbors, they moved last year, but the husband used to leave his wife love notes on the community message board in Animal Crossing, and that's how he proposed to her. He asked her to marry him on a message board in the Animal Crossing video game. But the reason I brought this up was, even though I know about Animal Crossing and I played it many moons ago, the newer version and also like me just being out of practice made it difficult to figure it out. So a lot has happened in the world and in our lives since I last lectured on your final paper. And whether you've written the first draft of that paper or not, it's good to have a quick refresh. So I'm going to talk about two things. I'm going to talk about first the slideshow that goes step by step about your final paper. Then I'm going to go step by step through how speeches are different than papers. Then I'm going to give you an activity to do. And during that activity, I'm going to help a couple people log into the class. So let me open my slides real quick. Where are you? You are not. That's not it. Maybe it's in Google. I think it might be in Google. Give me a second. I'm having all kinds of technical difficulties today. You can do it, little computer. I believe in you. I think my computer is mad at us. I think it's like it has to do math in the morning, and then it has to do speech in the afternoon, and then it has to do Google Classroom for our kids for ELA at nighttime. And it's just like too much. So, you know, part of me wants to buy Mr. Boone his own MacBook, but then I'm like, we don't really need that. It'll be all right. We're still holding out hope that, you know, everyone will be back in a classroom in the fall, but I don't know. Maybe it doesn't hurt to hope. I don't know if it'll all come true, but we're just putting that positive energy out into the world. Okay, so I love this image because, you know, there are some of you, like I said, 8 out of 24 already did the first draft of the paper. And I told you 50% of the people who skip off on doing a first draft, they end up getting a D or an F. And the people who did the first draft would tell you, most of them got a D or an F. I've got to stop drinking the water. I hate the way I look on the camera with the water, but I'm like, ooh, I'm thirsty. So do a first draft of the paper. And I know you're like, oh, it's not due for another week or so. I don't have to stress about it. Like, it's only 2 pages. But I've never graded you on an essay before. Like, your outlines are not always great. Your outlines have, you know, misspellings, bad punctuation, run-on sentences. All I asked you to do was use the template. I didn't say be a strong writer. In your outlines, you're supposed to write the way you talk, and that the conversational tone is not always it's not always grammatically correct. So I give people a little bit of leeway there, you know. I was pretty chill about that. But when it comes to your papers, like, I'm super, super vigilant about checking for grammatical, spelling, sentence structure, formatting issues. I want 1-inch margins, 12-point font, you know, double spaced, appropriate use of headings, consistent use of formatting, like all of that stuff. I want that. So don't put it off. Okay, so here's the 3 steps to the final paper. First, you choose a learning outcome. Secondly, you look up the chapter and the glossary terms. And third, you can watch a movie. Now, the third one, like, I almost want like to make the third one like go away, like don't see that one. Because the first 2 are really the majority of the paper. Because remember, the entire goal of this paper is what? I'll wait for someone to unmute themselves or write in the chat box, but someone should be able to tell me, what is the goal of this 2-page paper?
Make a supper.
What was that, Zoe? I heard you, but you cut out. What was the goal of the paper?
To make a supper.
So that's right, to explain the learning objective. That's the goal, is to explain one of the learning objectives for the class. So not multiple objectives, not even the whole thing. You can just do part of it. But the goal is for you to explain one learning objective for this class. So the first thing you have to do is pick it. Now, some of you logged in a little bit late, and some of you are logged in through YouTube, and that's okay. You can still write in the chat box in YouTube, you know, the learning objective I think I'm going to do is this. So there are 5 learning objectives. They're on the first page of the syllabus. They're also listed in the assignment guidelines, and they're also on my slideshow. So the first one has to do with applying critical thinking skills when listening to, analyzing, and evaluating oral messages. Those are 3 different things. Critical thinking skills to listening, critical thinking skills to analyzing, and critical thinking skills to evaluating. Like, are they good or bad? Is their message strong? And what did I think just while I was listening? Those are 3 different layers. You don't have to explain all 3 layers if you're doing learning objective 1. You could just focus on one area of that. I'll talk more about that in a bit when I break you off into your groups. The second learning objective is to develop, organize, support ideas with personal experiences, cited research, and informative and persuasive presentations. Boy, that one is a mouthful, let me tell you. Organizing a speech, you could do a whole 2-page paper on organizing a speech, on spatial pattern of arrangement, topical pattern of arrangement, chronological pattern of arrangement, and why each of those is important in the way that you follow your thought process, right? Or you could do a whole 2-page paper on different kinds of personal experiences. Or you could do what kind of verbal citations do you create for persuasive speeches using motivated sequence. That is 3 totally different papers that all 3 explain learning objective 2, right? You could do one that focuses on patterns of arrangement. You could do which deals with the word organize. You could do one that deals with personal experience, right? You could deal that, which is the kind of evidence. Or you could do one that deals with motivated sequence and persuasion. And all 3 of those 2-page papers would help further understand learning objective number 2 and demonstrate that you get it. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I have to explain every part of learning objective 2. That's impossible to do in 2 pages. Hone in on one specific part of it. Okay. Learning objective 3, evaluate context, attitudes, values, and responses of different audiences. This is one of my favorite ones because I know that context, attitudes, and values, all 3 of those things, are different aspects you want to take into consideration when you consider the different audiences that you have to present to. So this is important because your headings, your terms, your glossary terms could be those 3 words that are already there. But I had another student who talked about the way values are understood, developed, and changed. And his whole paper was just about the way audiences and values play into presentations. So learning objective 4 is identifying different styles of presentation using either delivery or presentation aids. Now, there are 2 learning objectives I want to warn you about. And I'll explain the next one in a minute, but the first is, well, I'll tell you. The 2 learning objectives I want to warn you off of a little bit are learning objective 4 and learning objective 5. Because if you do learning objective 4, I think it's great to talk about the rules for visual aids. And I will even let you use Death by PowerPoint as a source. I'm fine with that. But that all being said, delivery is one of the least important things. And I feel like it is becoming increasingly less important. Aiden looks just so presidential, just so serious. Well, I have my golf background today. But sorry, it's distracting. I keep anywho, with number I like it. So if you do number 4, just make sure that you don't. No, it's okay. It's okay. I can always change the views so I'm not looking at yours. I'm looking at someone else's, but it usually does it kind of in alphabetical order, and you're with my name. I don't know. We can change what we see. That was life. For all those of you who've been on with me, the last week since my grandfather passed, we do a novena, which is 9 days of prayers with the whole family. And normally everyone comes together at someone's house, but we're doing it over Zoom because of social distancing. But it's just hysterical because I was explaining at the beginning that people could slide over on their phones or press the little buttons on their computer and see different things. And one of my tias was I have been staring at my own face this whole time. I didn't know after 8 days I could have been looking at everybody. So it was a success just to log as many people in as we did, but it was just hysterical that they were like, why didn't you tell us? So anywho, for those of you who don't know, if I hadn't told you, you can always change the view of what speakers you are seeing. I know it's a little trickier. You can only do that if you're in Zoom. If you're watching us through YouTube, you're basically stuck with my face and my slides, and I apologize for that. Okay, so if you do number 4, focus on presentation aids. The last one is number 5. Now, number 5 is the example we used at the start of the semester. It's also got a practice paper written for it online in our module about the final paper. And it's also the easiest of the 5 learning objectives. So if you are going to choose learning objective number 5, please write a good paper, because I read so many papers about learning objective number 5 that if yours is bad, it will stand out. I don't read a lot of papers on learning objective number 2. So if you want to stand out from the crowd, you can do one on learning objective number 2. But be thinking about what learning objective you might want to do and put it in the box before I break you into groups, because I will put you in groups based off what you selected. Oops. Okay, so the next thing is glossary terms. And for me, this is like, figure out which of these you want. I just described you the 5 of them. And after you figure out which one you want, then you have to open up the glossary to the book and say, which chapter connects with mine the best? And after you decide what chapter from my book, oh, I just got a book and I open it up, and what chapter matches? I have props today. Which chapter matches? Then you will say, okay, what 3 terms from that? Oh, look at, you've got, the president has props too. So I think that we are also following Natalina to her kitchen to look for snacks, I think. And yeah, that's right. Sorry, y'all like crack me up what you do while I'm teaching. So yesterday I had a class, you're still my good class. Yesterday I had a class where I asked questions, and I seriously, like, I checked my email on my phone waiting for a response. It was this long, horrible, awkward pause. And then I was like, you guys, stop watching TikToks and respond to my question. I repeat, stop watching TikToks. And this kid unmutes and he goes, can you see me right now? Yeah, that happened. So stop watching TikToks if that's any of you right now. No, I'm just kidding. If you can listen to my voice as well, you know, send me something funny. Okay, so next we pick our 3 glossary terms when you're writing your paper. Make sure when you're looking at the book, and you know, I want to remind you, you don't have to just look at the actual textbook. You could look at the workbook too, because the workbook emphasizes what are the important glossary terms, and you already wrote out a definition. So it's like you already did the work. But when you go in to do that work, you know, don't do it like when you haven't eaten and you're grouchy and it's late at night and you know, the lighting is low. Like, you know, have something to write on if you're not going to write in your book. Have a pencil ready to write with. You know, I would say it doesn't hurt to have some snacks. Natalina's doing well in the class because she always stays well hydrated and well fed while we are learning. It is a trademark. That's you should trademark that, like how I succeed as a high school homeschool student in college classes during COVID. Snacks. So I think snacks and witty banter. All right, so make sure that you, and I feel like this is obvious and redundant, but I'm going to say it again. Make sure that you choose terms that relate back to the objective you picked. So if you're doing, oh, did you say that again, Natalina?
I said you said it wrong. It's actually snackies.
Snackies. Oh, I have been corrected. You need to write your manifesto so that I'm always correct here. I will read it. You write it, I will read it. Okay, so make sure you choose terms that relate back to your chapter. I read a paper yesterday and the student was talking all about, like, she was talking about the communication model, but her learning objective was communication anxiety, and like, they didn't make sense together. It's like she had all the things she needed to make the paper work. Here's the great way of putting it. She had a computer and she had a charger for a computer, and she even had a mouse that went with that computer. but the mouse was for a MacBook and the computer was a Chromebook and the charger was from her dad's old Dell laptop. So even though she had all the supplies she needed in order to sit down and like log into a class, they weren't actually the right supplies because they didn't match up. So just make sure when you pick the building blocks, you don't pick 3 random things and try and force them together. Because if you have, you know, the charger for your Chromebook and you have your laptop that's a MacBook, they're not gonna work. They're non-mixy things. All right, so also, it's only a 2-page paper. I don't wanna read what the textbook authors wrote. Please paraphrase in your own words and then just put in parentheses at the end if you're doing APA, the year and the author's last name, or if you're doing MLA, the page number that you found this on. Either format's fine. So please just don't cut and paste. I had another paper I read this morning where the student had like, I would say out of the 2.5 pages, 1.5 pages was all verbatim quotes from the textbooks. It was nuts, you guys. Don't do that. Just annoyed me. And they all felt so like forced in there. It was like someone took a hammer and was like trying to like force these like poor quotes into a paper that they didn't want to be there. It was against their will. It was uncomfortable to read. Also, and I said this when I was talking about picking your learning objective, you're not going to get a good grade if you pick learning objective 4 and talk about eye contact. Do not, I repeat, do not pick learning objective 4 and just talk about eye contact. Sorry, I want to pop over for a second while I'm doing this lecture into my YouTube video, which is weird because you guys can see my YouTube video. Can we use MLA for the final paper? So Abigail, this is in response to your question. I am totally cool with you using MLA. The examples that I posted are all in APA. So just don't mix them up. Just use MLA consistently. If you know MLA, use MLA. Like just be consistent as you do that. Sorry, I have to like minimize my slides to go and check what's happening with I guess I could open YouTube on my phone, but then it would just be like so much is happening. Okay, the last thing, and I want to be clear, I'm not even like go through this quick. The last thing you do is watch a Renex talk. It's a TED talk done by BC. I gave you 9 to choose from, and it is the least important part of this assignment. So don't spend time trying to understand it or connect it or figure out what the thesis is. Like, I just need an example that you saw them use evidence correctly if you're doing learning objective 3. Like, that's all I need. All right, please don't spend the entire essay summarizing your video. If you watch, I know that Dean Thorson has a video on Sticks and Stones, which is about word choices. Be clear when you're talking about her use of vocabulary, the textbook's use of vocabulary, and your own ideas, like just distinguish between the 3. Only watch the video after you choose your learning objectives. So I know this is all of us, right? We sit in front of the computer and we're like, I got this, I'm ready. And then it's just like a blank screen. In fact, true story, when I was in graduate school and writing my master's thesis, not my doctorate, I got more disciplined by then, but Mr. Boone used to take all of the controllers and the cord strip for our games out of the house so that all I could do was write. Like he took the router, he took everything just so I couldn't do anything but write. Which is funny because my master's thesis is about video games, but I had already played the video games all the way through and like kept a notebook. So now I needed to like consolidate all those ideas and put them on paper, which took a little bit longer. Okay, so remember I started with this and I cannot emphasize it enough. This is not an outline and this is not loosey-goosey. Like it's an essay. So mechanics and construction will be considered in your grade. Please, please, please proofread it. And follow a consistent format. Oh, that's wrong. I changed it to a 2 to 3 page paper. But when I say 2 to 3 pages, I'm not including the bibliography in those 2 to 3 pages. And I do not mean like a page in 1 line. I mean like all like, this is 2 full pages, all the way from top to bottom, 2 full pages, double spaced, okay? You're required to have a bibliography. It should have 3 things in it: the syllabus, the video, and the book. And I have an example of an A paper, but warning to those of you, are you choking? Don't choke. So a warning to all of you, make sure that You are consistent. You can use MLA if you know it. If you don't know it, try APA out. I know, and I feel like my meme is now outdated because none of you will check Facebook. You'll all check Instagram or Snapchat. But looking at Snapchat it's so funny. I'm staying at my grandma's and I'm like, I stay with her in her room because she's having trouble sleeping. So I leave my phone. Are you okay? I'm like really, really worried about Natalina over here. She's like very, very amused. Normally when I wake up, I check my phone and I like troll through and check all my messages and everything. And I usually spend like a half hour looking at my phone at least before I get out of bed. I'm getting out of bed like almost a whole hour earlier when my phone is in the other room because I don't have anything to look at in bed. So I just get up and brush my teeth and start my day. It's very weird. I strongly recommend that. I will do it from now on. Okay, so I went over the slides generally talking about the speech. The next thing I want to do, let me stop my screen share. Oh, where did it go? It's hiding from me. There we go. Stop my share for a second because right now I have the grade book open, so I want to make sure. The girl, she's rich. Schnackies. If I stand out, will I get a better grade? You're cracking me up. Okay. Okay, to show your learning objective. I still don't know what that game is. I don't know what game you're talking about. You guys are just totally trolling me on this chat. I thought you were asking a bunch of questions while I was lecturing. No, you're just trolling me. That's all right. People in YouTube land, you have missed nothing except for so icy and spicy trolling me. Okay, so I want to go, oh, I need to move it. Sorry, I have your grades open, so I need to close those before I share my screen again. Because that would be bad. That would break so many security protocols. Like, what is it? The education, the FERPA, Family Educational Protections or whatever. Totally break that. Although I had a student log in yesterday and his mom was with him right next to him in my office hours. And so he's asking me about his grade and his mom is overhearing all of it. I was like, am I like violating FERPA right now? I mean, because he knows his mom can hear him, right? Okay, so I'm going to share the screen again. And there's going to be, some things that are not, I'm not even going to circle my modules anymore because I click modules so much that it's not even worth reminding you that's where I want you to click. That's a tough question. Let me think about the question about resubmitting outlines. Because you're supposed to resubmit and it's on the rubric for this speech that you're supposed to submit it before you speak. And so there's like not really take backsies, but I love this class. So maybe we'll see. Ask me again in a few minutes. We'll see how good you guys do on the group activity. If y'all like bomb it like my yesterday class that was watching TikToks, then no. All right, so I'm in modules and I'm scrolling to our midterm final exam. So this is the module about the paper that you're working on, okay? And module, as you know, is just a fancy word for folder. Now, if you click on the first button, the very first button, it's gonna take you to where you turn the assignment in. Why does it say that it's due February 21st? Am I not in our class? That's weird. I need to fix that. I will fix that in just a moment when I get you all worked in. But one of the most important lessons it took me graduate skill to learn is that if you're not sure what to do on an assignment, go back and look at the directions, like carefully. If you follow the instructions here carefully, you're gonna be okay. So remember I said you watch one video, here's the list of approved videos. One of them is from me, but these are all either deans, administrators, or instructors at Bakersfield College speaking on different subject areas. Super interesting. I mean, I actually really like Oliver Rosales' one. If you're really into history, that's all about the histories of the Central Valley. Talida's from my department. She teaches intercultural. I love the one about laughter. The one about Black masculinity is very intense, but very good. I mean, all of these are good. I wouldn't have put them in there if they weren't good. But I just wanted to give you a quick little, this doesn't mean you can like go rogue and be like, I'm gonna write about my favorite TED Talk. Like, no. Follow the instructions and pick one of the TED Talks here. Okay, and just a reminder, I know we already know this, because I remind you all the time, but if you click here, I just put a pink square over a blue button. It didn't turn it purple, sadly, but I put a pink square over a blue button, and that blue button is where you will turn in the assignment. So I'm going to go back to our module for a second and go over the last aspect of this assignment that I want to go over. Come on, can you do it? I believe in you. Uh-oh. Okay, so I click on modules. I clicked back one too many times. All right, so I'm back. And remember I said there was one more thing I wanted to go over from this module before I had you do an activity. And that was the speech versus the essay form, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and click on this, and I'm gonna explain it a little bit more, because I've spent 90% of this class either teaching you about speeches or grading your speeches. And that's really what we've spent all of our energy on. But now I'm asking you to write an academic essay. And I've had a couple students complain like, you know what, that's not fair. Like, it's not fair because this is a speech class. Well, this is also a college class. So if you take a history class or a sociology class or a music appreciation class, they're going to ask you to write academic papers as well. And they probably won't spend as much time as I am going over what my exact expectations are. It's just part of college that you have to write papers. It's not fair. I know, life's not fair. Seriously. 5 people at a funeral, people. The world is broken. Okay. So I created this beautiful little diagram. I'm very proud of it. I actually thought of a couple changes I want to make. But before we talk about those changes, let's go line by line through this. So what's the difference between a thesis in an essay and a speech? Now, on the left is you are my favorite class. So on the left, in this first column, is an example of what you do in a presentation. And on the right, it tells you what to do in an essay. So in a speech, like, all you had to say was, the goal of my speech is to get you to donate blood. The goal of my speech is to get you to fill out your census and tell at least 2 other people to do the same. Like, it was very specific. Like, the goal of this speech is to tell you about Mini Coopers, the cars. Like, that you could even say the thesis of this speech, and I would have been like, A-okay. But when you are writing an essay, you have to reduce your ideas into 1 to 2 sentences and then thoughtfully provide a guide for the reader to experience the content. You don't get to say the thesis of this essay is blank. Like, if you do that, you will not get a good grade. You have to be more thoughtful in the way that you summarize what the paper is going to be about to help guide the reader. Now we're going to move on to line 2. In line 2, we talk about the differences in sentences. Now, not only is there a difference in the sentences that you write for a speech versus an essay, but I legit so severely grade them differently. Because, like, some of y'all were a hot mess in your outlines. I mean, some of you were not capitalizing the word I. There was not a comma or a period to be seen in many a segment I read. But I didn't like fail you for doing that. You know, when you're doing a speech, for me, like, it's a pretty low bar. Like, did you use sentences? Did you use words in English? Did you use the template I gave you? Those are really like my 3, like, is it in English? Did you use sentences? Did you follow the template and the techniques I told you to use? Like, that's a really low bar. But when you're writing an essay, and including for me, I want you to use more complex sentence structure to support your ideas. Like, I want to see what can you do with your words to help explain yourself. And I mean, like, I didn't choose two pages arbitrarily. I really think that in 2 pages, you can demonstrate your ideas in a meaningful way. All right, let's move on to the third, which is the audience. And there's 2 sections. So now I'm on the orange square. And on the orange square, when we're giving a speech, and this is really important, one of the learning objectives for this class is that you will spend some time before you write your speech thinking about who is in the audience. And this class did a good job about that, right? Like you tied in Valley Oaks humor, you tied in downtown Bakersfield, you tied in your own lives and stories. Similarly, I had a student who did the census yesterday, and she was talking about, she actually showed pictures of really bad roads in Arvin, right? So like she knew that that message would appeal specifically to other people that lived in the Lamont Arvin area. She was considering her audience. We don't really do that when we write essays. Like academic essays are not like, I know CCB loves board games, so I'm going to use a bunch of like random board game trivia in my essay. Like it doesn't work. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for in an essay, did you follow the instructions? Did you organize your thoughts well and complete your ideas? So when I read your essays as an audience member, I'm not looking for a connection with you like I am during a speech. When I read your papers, and this happened, in fact, it happened to a couple of you, I wrote you notes. People didn't know how to start the paper, so they like basically like took the paragraph from the sample paper that's about public speaking anxiety. So they made that their first paragraph. Then, this is the student I was saying, introduced delivery, and then started talking about concepts related to the communication model. Like it was all over the place. And I'm on like the fourth paragraph, well into the second page, and I still don't know what the thesis of the paper is. It was that whole, I have a Macintosh computer and a Chromebook charger. Like things just didn't match together. So, you know, I can look at your paper multiple times and say like, oh, I just missed the thesis was they were trying to connect everything to this. But essays are wonderful because I have the opportunity to go back and look more closely at that first paragraph over and over and over again. All right, so we're on the fourth row, which is organization. Now, when we talk about organizing a speech, if you're talking about when someone, or if you're talking about a major event, if you're talking about a movement, if you're talking about a person. So let's say I was talking about ADA compliance. I might start by talking about the 60s where the first, ADA legislation passed. Then I might talk about, the 80s where there was a huge push to make national monuments and buildings compliant. And then I might talk about today and where we're at with that movement, right? So that would be chronological pattern of arrangement. Oh, Natalina died. That's not good. Or I could do, that's chronological, I could do spatial. If I was doing a speech on California, I could start in San Diego, then I could stop in Bakersfield, then I could end in Sacramento, and I would be following, starting in the southernmost coast, I'd be following my organization of my ideas in a spatial pattern that worked its way up the state, right? So when you give a speech, there are these mechanisms that can help your audience process the information. But what I love about APA, and this won't work for those of you who are doing APA or MLA, is that you can use headings that will tell people where you're going, which is even easier than I think the way that we do it in a speech, and one of the reasons why I love APA. Oh, awesome. So a couple people resubmitted revised essays. I haven't checked those for this class today, but I will do that today before the end of the day. I have to go to some award ceremony. Remember, I was nominated for like Teacher of the Year. So they have the awards ceremony right after class, and I'm gonna log into Zoom and grade while I'm at that. Oh no, okay, Natalina's back. I got her back in, she's here. I know that Spicy was worried there for a second. All right, we have 4 more ways that we have to consider how speeches are different from essays. The first is, well then the first, we're on what, the 5th? So the 5th is repetition. And when it comes to speeches, I mean, heck, when it comes to teaching, I really believe in saying something is an announcement, and then you tell people again, and then you tell people what you told them, and then even sometimes you like send a meme to drive it home one more time. It helps the audience remember. If you repeat something, it helps the audience remember. But this doesn't work in writing essays because people could just read it. I actually read a 2-page essay that used the word very 17 times in 2 pages. Don't be that guy or gal. Just don't do that. Like it's no. Use, I mean, just if you need to amplify a word, find a better word. And if you're using a word repeatedly, use the free thesaurus in your word file, find a different word, because it creates redundancies, especially in a paper as short as 2 pages. You just want to be careful about doing things like that. All right, so the next thing is our lovely violet square. We're on the next row about quotations. When you give speeches, I discouraged you from using verbatim quotes. Because we are doing this digitally, I think that y'all leaned into digital or to verbal quotes more than I would have liked, but it still is not best practices when giving speeches. You want to give clear verbal credit and try and reword whenever you can. But when it comes to, your final paper, if you put quotation marks around something, well, then I know it's someone else's ideas and it's not as big of a deal. And as long as you do it correctly with punctuation, I expect you to have at least 3 minimum, bare minimum, 3 parenthetical citations from the textbook. That's your bare minimum in your 2-page papers is 3. That doesn't mean you only have to have 3. And that does not mean they have to be direct quotes. They could be paraphrases, but whether they're paraphrased or they're direct quotation marks, make sure that you use the correct grammar to indicate where the ideas came from. Because I can tell when you tell me that like audience analysis is key to understanding the psychology of an audience you'll be presenting to. I know that that's not your own idea. I know that idea came from the textbook. So you just need to put a page number, if you're doing MLA, and parentheses at the end of that sentence, so I know where you found that idea and you're attributing those ideas to it. All right, so we are down to the next row. In the next row, let's go ahead and let's do blue. Audience analysis. Now I talked a little bit about the audience already. But one of the things that I didn't say before, I was like, when you're a speaker, you have to analyze that audience and think about what could their values be? What could their backgrounds be? But the other thing to take into consideration is that you cannot write a paper as though you were writing it for me. Like, what if I was like, peace out, people. I'm taking my bereavement leave and they're going to hire another teacher to grade all your final papers. Like, what if that happened? The teacher would have no context. They would have no background information about the assignment. They would just read the papers on face value. Are they good? Are they bad? You should write every single paper this way. You should write every academic paper as though it were going to be measured with the same ruler. That ruler being like, if someone didn't know what the assignment was, could they still figure it out? You would not drop the class. You're almost done. It'll be a travesty. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay, so now we're all the way down to the last one. And the last one is one of the most important ones. I don't know why I left it at the very bottom. This paper should not be written from a first-person perspective. So I just mean to say there, I don't want a paper that's narrative. Like, it's a simple, straightforward analysis. And honestly, I feel like you're writing more of a technical report than an analysis. Because I'm just asking you to take, I'm not asking you about your experiences. I'm asking you to take what the goal of the class is and connect it to the book and write that up. Leave your personal experiences out of it completely. What's the learning objective? Connect it to the book. 2 pages. That's all I want you to do. I don't want, I'm not saying you can't make analysis and assessments based off what you read and how you perceive them, but don't do that from a first-person perspective. So don't say, I think that when we gave speeches, we overcame anxiety because we knew the people around us. Don't do that in this paper. And this is one of the most confusing principles in the class, is that whole use of pronouns, because I try to empower you to share as much of your stories and your background to build credibility as speakers. The more the audience feels connected to you, it's one of the reasons why I slip in stories about my personal life, right? Because the more that you feel connected to me, the more you are engaged as an audience. And that's why I do it, right? When you write an academic essay, like there's no room for that. Like you can't put a little like note in the margins that says like, hey, my grandpa died. Like it doesn't, it's not going to help you at all. Whereas in a speaking environment, it will absolutely help you to be honest with your audience about your feelings, your experiences, so they know who you are and where you're coming from. So when you write the paper, just don't say I, don't say we, don't say us. Just skip that and you'll get a better grade. Okay, so we have talked about the two big things, an overview of this paper, and we've talked about how it's different than speeches, which I spent 90% of the semester on speeches. So here's what we're gonna do now. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of scrolling because we had so much comments. Yes, my internet is unstable. I'm gonna connect them, create the breakout rooms. Okay, I would like for you to write 3 different people to write 3 different questions in the chat box about the final paper while I am setting up our breakout rooms. Oh, you guys are doing good. Okay, so I've got Juanita, got Aiden. Where'd Gabriella go? Gabriella was in here. Okay. Okay, and Morgan, if it keeps kicking you out, I also sent you a link to the YouTube login. So you could just watch us broadcasting live, but it'd be a little harder to interact. So I know a couple of people keep getting kicked out. Okay. Carter, Riley, Anita, Aiden, Anastasia. I don't see, oh, you changed to Dooku. I was like, where did you go? And Jessica. Okay, that's the only ones I have. So the rest of you, I will auto assign. All right, so let's answer these 3 questions, and then I'm going to explain to you what to do next. So the questions are, can the paper be over 2 pages? The answer is yes. However, please show discretion. I had a student who turned in an 8-page paper to me last week, and I was like, no. So this can be done in 2 pages. I think 3 makes it a little bit easier. I'm totally cool with you going to the bottom of 3 pages. But I think once we start getting into 4 and 5, you're not really saying anything meaningful. You're just adding fluff. So, you know, write 5 pages and then take the fluff out. If I do the second topic, will you grade it easier? No, I mean, well, I don't want to say, I am really tough on people who choose learning objective 5, which people who already did their papers know that. Like, it's not even intentional. It's just that I read so many of them that if someone wrote one and got 100%, and then you wrote one and it was like crap compared to theirs, it's hard not to compare those. So I think that, like, even using my rubrics, I think that I'm a little stricter on the folks who do learning objective 5. So just, you know, keep that in mind. Doesn't mean I don't give out, it doesn't mean I don't give out multiple 100%. It just means, you know, it is a little harder. Okay, let's see. And Natalie's hair is cute. I'm gonna double check our video real quick and make sure none of our folks in YouTube land also have a question. So our folks in YouTube land, yes. So you definitely count Abigail for using this chat room instead of a Zoom box. Can we still, I love this. Okay, our folks in YouTube are asking great questions. You can use MLA or APA, and I will still let you turn in a rough draft. So I know, like, don't tell my other classes. Usually I'm like, no, but I mean, our class is small enough. We're late enough in the semester. It's only 2 pages. But here's my new rule. I will only let you do redos if you at least attempt to get an appointment with the Writing Center. So I would love the best possible version to come to me. So if you send me a screenshot that you sent an email to the Writing Center, or if you get that extra credit because you already met with them, I'll give you those 5 points. I will look at your paper multiple times. Happily, I will grade it multiple times. But yes, you get credit for being in these boxes as well. And let's see here. Okay, so we answered all the questions. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put you in groups. And so for the folks in YouTube land, you are group number 1. Janet, Morgan, Zoe, you are group number 2. Erin, Cameron, Daniela, and Gabriella, you are group 3. Icy, Spicy, Jessica, and Tatiana, you are group 4. And Aiden, Juanita, Carter, Anastasia, and Riley, you are group 5. Now, your group number corresponds with the learning objective you are in charge with. This doesn't mean that, and if I put you in the wrong group, you're like, no, I said I wanted to be in room 3. Send me a message in the chat box right now. But I wanted to remind you, so I'm gonna put this in the chat box. Here are our learning objectives. What are our 3 new messages? Okay. I don't actually have a preference. I'm cool with, oh, these are not numbered. I am cool with APA or MLA. Like, I like APA better to write with personally, but I can grade either. So whichever one you want to do, I'm comfortable with. Apply critical thinking skills is number 1. Starting with D, develop is number 2. Evaluate context, attitudes, beliefs, and responses is number 3. Number 4 is presentation aids and delivery. Number 5 is managing communication anxiety. So I'm going to hop over here in the chat box for our YouTube people. You are in charge of objective number 1. Okay, so there are 4 things that I want you to do when I break you into groups. The first is, so in your groups, I'm writing this in the chat box, your groups. Number 1, choose a chapter that you think fits your learning objective. What is the number of that chapter? Zoe, I am very confused by your question. Oh, maybe because I can't see Aiden. Okay, so choose a chapter that you think fits your learning objective. What is the number of that chapter and title? Number 2, choose 3 different concepts. Oh crap, I am sending stuff. Is no one seeing what I'm writing? You're supposed to tell me when this happens. Y'all are being weird. Let's see here. How do I chat to everyone? Okay. So 1, choose a chapter you think fits your learning objective. What is the number of that chapter? Number 2, oh my God, Mr. Boone is a hero, you all. He is a hero. He just walked in with Luigi's, my favorite, the walnut crusted salmon. And my daughter's very favorite thing to eat in the world, which is Luigi's lasagna. Sorry, I can smell it. He's not even in this room, I like smell it. Okay, so number 2, what are 3 concepts from that chapter that you could write about that relate back to the objective? And number 3, last but not least, what is a possible thesis for this topic or this learning objective? Now, you don't have to do this solo. You're going to do this in your breakout rooms with another group. I want you to pick, oh, that was number 4. Pick one person to unmute and share with the group. All right, so it is 3:25 now. We're going to go until 3:45. I'm going to give you a full 20 minutes. That's a long time to work on these 4 questions, which I'm trying to move over into our YouTube chat, but it's getting messed up with some people here. Okay, so let's see here. You guys are so funny. 3. Let's see. Did I send it? There we go. Oh, is it too long? I wrote too much. It won't let me send it. Let's see. Yeah, I'm getting ready to put them in breakout groups so I could totally eat.
Okay.
You look very handsome with the hat on. I like it. It looks better than the fro. The fro is terrible.
Why are you eating? Because I want some.
I haven't eaten. I haven't eaten. Oh, what is that? This is small and light. Oh my
Sure,
God,
lasagna.
this is like, you're so. Yes.
I see a baby size.
Oh, they're waving at Boom. And my daughter holding like a baby her Luigi's lasagna.
Why?
I don't know. It's TikTok.
See, now you're distracting them. All right, you have until 3:45. I'm putting you in breakout rooms right now.
Everything's TikTok.
Answer the 4 questions.
Wait, it's
The whoa.
Hey, that's okay.
So I don't really want to eat it because I wanted to wait till it's warm right now.
it's hot.
Yeah,
Except for
That's
this.
not-
This is my baby.
Did you kick him out?
no, I put him in breakout rooms.
Okay.
I gave him an activity. I don't know. Okay.